Wizard podcast. I'm really excited to share this review for you today. Amazon Studios was kind enough to give us yet another sneak peek at an upcoming series they have. This one's called Outer Range. This was not on my radar at all. I never heard of it until I got the screener, and I was really excited to dive in once I did. The concept of Outer Range is that there's a ranching family in modern-day Wyoming having all these struggles that you would assume a cattle rancher does. You know, we all know the American farmers having a hard time making ends meet. There's land disputes with neighbors. The adult children have their own issues, and the patriarch of the family, who's kind of the protagonist of the show, is played by the absolutely incredible Josh Brolin. And not only is it great to see Josh Brolin, because who doesn't love Josh Brolin in a project, but this lets him explore some emotional depths and things that we haven't seen from him in a little while. Not to say he's been phoning it in by any means, but this just felt like kind of a departure of what at least I was associating Josh Brolin with lately, and it was a very welcome change of pace to see him in such a great role. And just to go off on a little tangent, since we're talking about the actors, the kind of antagonist, for lack of a better word, is played by Will Patton. Will Patton, if you don't know the name, you're definitely going to recognize the actor. I always thought of him more as a character actor, which again is not a slight. That's a great thing. We need those amazing actors to fill these roles, and you see him again and again. But Will Patton doesn't get the most screen time, but when he does, he's just so good at delivering these lines and selling these lines that you can't help but respect him, even though he is cast in the closest to a villain role that there would be. Of course, the rest of the cast is also doing a great job. Imogen Poots plays this kind of mysterious outsider who shows up and isn't what she advertises as being. Sorry for being a little cagey, I didn't say this up front, but this is a fully spoiler-free review, and Outer Range is one of those shows where you don't want spoilers from anybody. You don't want it from the internet, you don't want it from your friends, you don't want it from your family, because the fun of watching this show, especially when we get to the week-by-week releases starting April 15th, the fun of the show is the mystery. Outer Range leaves a lot to what's going on with this character, what's going on with this storyline, what's going on with this one element of the show that we're going to talk about in a second, and you can speculate and guess and come up with theories, and that's where it's fun to talk with your friends and people online and whoever else. But I would say avoid spoilers at all costs to really enjoy this show. Tom Pelphrey, Lewis Pullman, Sean Sipes, and Noah Reed, and Tamara Podemski round out the rest of the supporting cast. I mean, obviously there's a few more characters than that, but these are kind of the main core group that get a lot of play. Lily Taylor as well. Sorry, it's a big thing. It's kind of two feuding families and then the wider world around them. It's very cool to get into. Each character gets their own storyline and gets their own due, but it never feels like big sidetracks away from the main plot of it. So I've kind of been dancing around it since the start of the video. The draw of Outer Range isn't just another modern-day Western, which it does a good job at being a modern-day Western, don't get me wrong. But what really drew me in was the concept that on this plot of land that this rancher owns is a hole. It looks like it's kind of filled almost to the top with a black swirling kind of smoke mist thing. And when something gets dropped into that hole, it doesn't seem to come back. I'm going to be really careful on giving spoilers of this. I actually plan on recording this video after watching only the first episode, and I was hooked, so I watched the next one. And if this show doesn't sound like it's for you, but you give the pilot a shot and it doesn't quite grab you, please sit through the second episode, because the end of that second episode will hook you. I can all but guarantee that. Once I got there, I had to keep going. I had to force myself to rein it in to record this video because I don't want to accidentally give you a spoiler. So there's this hole or void or whatever you want to call it. I was calling it a at the beginning, and I'm afraid no matter what word I choose to use, it's going to sound like I'm leading you in a certain direction, so I'm just going to go ahead and call it the hole. So there's things that go on around this hole that start spreading to the wider area, and that you get more and more clues as to what is possibly going on. And there's really clever dialogue that dances around what's going on, what could be going on. Was that a nod to the audience? Was it just something the character happened to say as a phrase? Was it a red herring? The writing is razor sharp, and it's so cool to have a mystery show like this. I'm sure I've mentioned it in videos before, but I was a huge fan of Lost. I was obsessed with all the viral marketing, and I'm always on the lookout for the next thing. I'm not saying Outer Range is the next Lost. That's not really a great comparison, but just that next mystery show that has you hooked and has you, to use a really overused term, sitting on the edge of your seat. And it's funny that I just said it's overused, because at the end of that second episode, I was literally on the edge of my couch, forgetting everything in the world around me, just trying to see what was coming next, and I could not wait to get on to the next episode. If it isn't clear by now, I highly recommend Outer Range. It's a great family story. It's a great character study following Josh Brolin's Royal Abbott. It's a great modern-day Western, and it's becoming a great piece of science fiction. It is a bit of a slow burn, so if you're a little bit impatient, bear with it, because as the excitement ramps up, so does the pace. And when I say slow burn, it's deliberately paced that way. The cinematography is done really well with interesting camera angles and things to keep you engaged, while a lot of it's just a couple characters talking, usually kind of not hushed tones, but there's not a lot of over dramatized shouting. No one's eating up the scenery in this. It's supposed to keep your mind focused on the normal, and there's enough drama there, so when the supernatural and the crazy sci-fi, because supernatural is probably the wrong word, but when the more out there things start happening, you're already on board with the people, which is also a storytelling element that I love so much, and I'm sure I've said that before as well. But Outer Range, absolutely a recommendation. And to be a little bit scatterbrained here, speaking of the cinematography, I love it when a modern show uses the scenery. The show takes place in Wyoming. I'm guessing they shot it on site. If not, they shot it somewhere else that easily passes as Wyoming. It's a lot of open pastures, mountain ranges, trees, just a lot of green, a lot of space. Coming out of winter here in upstate New York, it's great to see, but it's also great to see a series using every bit of space we have on our modern TVs. I mean, you can go to the store and get a big TV that does 4K for a very reasonable price. In-home entertainment has never been stronger, especially coming out of COVID where we couldn't go anywhere. We all were upgrading our in-home entertainment. So it's awesome to see a series that is taking full advantage of that. They're not afraid to put the camera somewhere, have the character be a small part of the frame, and just show everything around them, the huge, vast world around them, which is also kind of a cool storytelling thing, whether they did it intentionally or not, because the huge, vast world around them is even bigger when it comes to the whole. Outer Range debuts April 15th on Amazon Prime. It's an Amazon Studios original. I've been gushing about it for the last 10 minutes, but obviously this is a recommend from me, and I'm actually excited for you, my audience, but also the Outer Range audience, to be able to experience this 1 week at a time. I didn't have the self-control to not binge more than half the series in 2 days before doing this video, and I'm telling myself I'm going to wait and rewatch it week by week with my wife. I might end up going downstairs right after this and finishing the screeners, because it's just that good, but I do love having the mystery kind of swirling around in the back of my mind while I'm putting things together. Please make sure you like and subscribe. We have a lot more new movie coverage, new series coverage, comic coverage, screeners, Amazon screeners, interviews, unboxings, ton more stuff coming your way. You're not going to want to miss out. Also, make sure you listen to So Wizard Podcast every single week wherever you get your podcasts. SoWizardPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, videos, merchandise, and more. We love hearing feedback, so drop us a note in the comments, leave us something on social media. All the accounts can be found after the show and in the show notes. And on a more personal note, a good friend and I have an ongoing comedy comic series called Social Studies. It's a slice of life, as I said, comedy, comic. We write it like a sitcom. We do it in the style of the 90s cartoons that we grew up and inspired us, with our own twist. It doesn't really look identical to anything else you've seen. There's 9 issues available now on socialstudiescomic.com. We are starting to get into comic book shops, starting locally here in upstate New York, but hopefully spreading soon. And of course, we're on Kindle Direct Publishing and Comixology. So check us out. There's a lot to see. Thanks.